I'm back. We're out here. I'm no different than anybody else. I've got my fair share of weeds. It's stupid hot here in Cookeville, Tennessee. In fact, I was told a little earlier that it is the hottest it has ever been here yesterday, and the next 2 days are going to beat that record. That's ever. That's how hot and miserable it is. And of course, my garden, I haven't spent the time in there I needed to, and I don't get out in the heat at all, so it's kind of taking its beating too. But we're just going to take a walk around it real quick. So I went to raised beds this year because I thought it'd be a lot easier, 2 foot higher off the ground. You're just bending over. And when we first started, it worked really, really good. I use tomato cages, which are nothing more than field fencing that are round, but they're round, they're big. Last year, I put 4 plants in each cage. Way too many, they tilted over. This year, I put 3 plants per cage. And I even tried to support them and still had too much weight. I mean, we have way too many tomatoes. So you can tell I haven't been working in it much. We're still talking. I did put marigolds in every one of the corners of a lot of these beds, trying to keep the weeds down, or excuse me, the insects down. Didn't work on the weeds, that's for sure. And it's done very well, but one thing, it has worked pretty well keeping a lot of the bugs out. I think it did well earlier in the year. Now it's just the bug infestation is so heavy, there's just not a whole lot you can do about it. But you know, the one thing you can do, and I've done this ever since I was a kid, is you can collect all of these marigold seeds right here, and look at that. And each one of those flowers mature, you have the equivalent to a pack of flower seeds. And marigolds, you can just broadcast them back out and they'll just come back next year. I don't know if you can see those or not. So you can see in the background here, my beans. I've got beans. There's some half runners. It's just some seed that I bought that I'm going to save that seed. Looks like a real good bean, and we're gonna break those and we're gonna make leather britches out of them. If you don't know what leather britches is, look up leather britches beans online. What it is you dry them instead of canning them or freezing them, and they have a nuttier taste when you rehydrate them and cook them, and that's the benefit to it. And you can learn online on Google. There's a lot of people that do it. It's from Appalachia is what it is, but it's beans that folks used to do when they couldn't even afford the canning jars. They just dried them in the hull. You notice I've got some beds here that I haven't got anything in yet. Those beds, actually getting ready to do some mustard greens. You know, it's August, so it's about time for us to plant doing fall crops, the cool season crops. I'm hoping to be able to do some broccoli and some cabbage. I'm a big broccoli fan, but I'm not much of a cabbage fan, but I just want to make sure I can still do it. I've done it in the past, so we'll get that. Having trouble actually finding plants. It's getting harder to find plants. So I was digging in this. I did some playing this year with doing potatoes in 5-gallon buckets. And I'm not going to dig a bunch, but I can tell you I got a really good crop of potatoes so far. These are actually Yukon Golds. I did Yukon Golds, I did Kennebecks, I also did the red Pontiacs, and of course new potatoes are really, really good with red Pontiacs. But you can see I haven't even started digging them up, and you can see I've got a pretty good mess right there. Probably a couple good messes. And those were really, really, really easy to do. I just planted these and just let them do it. Again, 25-gallon pot. We do sell 25-gallon pots. And there we go. And just let them sit out there for a day and then take them in, wash them, and their skins get a little harder and they'll be ready to go. Going back to the beans. You can see here the beans, some of them are a little old, but you know, you can get Shelly beans out of these too. Well, these are mature beans. You just pull them and you let those dry and you've got seed for next year. And be honest, all these beans here, there was not probably 25 beans that I put out right here, and I've got this much, and you can see the harvest we've got here. I just haven't gotten in here yet. These beans are all over the place, and I need to pull these, and then we will have this many again. You can see our yellow squash. This is a later crop. We've got powdery mildew on it because there's so much humidity, and we're just trying to benefit from it the best we can. We still got some squash in there. You can probably see it. It's not doing the best. I'm just trying to get a little bit off of it. I'm just a normal guy. I don't have the time. You can look in there and there's enough squash we need to pick them. I'm sure somebody will fuss at me and say that I need to pick them. Of course, as far as I'm concerned, that's nothing but seed. You can't do much with that. I think some folks might actually take the big yellow squash and turn it into a squash relish, which I think, if anybody's got any ideas on that, I'm game for it because I've got some big squash because I didn't get out here as much as I should. And would love to turn that into something productive and not just have to throw it away and put it in the compost pile. Sweet potatoes. This is an experiment this year for me for sweet potatoes. And I did them in 25-gallon buckets. You can see this is 2 buckets in there. I have not had to water them this year because we've been lucky and had enough rain. That's the reason it's so darn humid too. It's been a good year for us, just hot. But you can see there were literally 4 small potato slips. And when I said they didn't look like they were going to live the night. And look at them now. I mean, and I had to fight the deer off of them because we've got deer out here. They were eating them. But they finally took hold. And this is an experiment. I want to see how much we can get out of this compared to running a row of sweet potatoes out in the field. I'm hoping it is enough for us to get a few meals off of, and I believe it will be. So just a different way of trying it. What I use for soil, I think I probably have 3 or 4 bags of soil in it, or a bunch of dirt as far as from the farm that I've used also. And as far as fertilizing them, you don't use much fertilizer with these because sweet potatoes don't like to be fertilized. They like kind of a poorer soil. You probably could have just done that with topsoil too. As far as these other beds, I'm fortunate enough that the bottom half of these beds are filled up with, it's a European way of doing it, where they fill it up with limbs and logs and organic debris and just let it rot. And the top half of it, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but the top half of it is soil. So you only got about 1 foot of soil in there, but it's kind of filled in also. And as the stuff rots underneath, it enriches the rest of the soil. Now I've also got some worm castings in here. It could have just been an easily used mushroom compost. Again, I'm fortunate enough that I've got access to it. I actually, in one of these beds, I think it was the bean bed, I ended up putting a couple bags of black cow in there. Now that's a brand, but what it is cow manure that's composted. And that works good too. So you just have to have good organic content to add to it. As far as fertilizer, if you want to use a fertilizer, you could use just a basic granular fertilizer. You don't have to have anything fancy. You can use like a 1010, 1212 fertilizer.
Chicken.
You can use chicken manure. Chicken manure is really, really good. Just make sure it's composted. The problem with chicken manure is it'll burn your stuff if it's not being composted. So if you see these few onions here and they look pretty straggly, those are actually Egyptian walking onions. And if you do some research on them, I actually bought those off of eBay and paid more money than I should have for them, but I wanted some Egyptian walking onions because what you do is they'll get your seed up here and they'll drop the seed, and it's called walking. They'll just self-seed themselves, and once you've got an onion patch, you've got an onion patch. And you can see it's done pretty well. It's coming up, and it'll do a lot better when it cools down a little more. Right now, they're doing fine. They're surviving, and about all you can expect right now is for everything to just survive. So you notice I have a Dram Redhead here that I use on the end of my hose. These things are fantastic. They don't wash out seedlings. They don't wash out plants. This one just happens to be, that's where I kept it so I wouldn't lose it. But when everything was real young, that's what I was watering with. Instead of using a stream, use that Redhead, and of course we sell those, but I highly recommend that or a seedling nozzle. Either one of those, you want to displace that water so it doesn't wash everything away. I really like that. Well guys, that wraps it up. You've seen the farm. There's not much to it, but we have a lot of fun out here. Thank you again so much. We appreciate it. Maybe we can come out again